Hey guys, thank you for coming back to my channel. And tonight at Late Night Reads, we will be reading, and reviewing Sudha Murthy's Wise and Otherwise. Sudha Murthy is a very popular Indian author and a philanthropist. She's the wife to Mr. Narayan Murthy, the founding father of Infosys. And Sudha Murthy is known for her philanthropic work, and she's also the chairperson of the Infosys Foundation, the CSR arm of Infosys, and she's a celebrated author. She has written multiple novels which are very interesting, like Mahashweta and Gently Falls the Bakula, Dollar Sose. But this book is a combination of 50 short stories or anecdote and conversation that she has had over a period of time during her philanthropic endeavors. And most of them are about rural or urban or semi-urban India. These stories have characters which are very funny, which are very interesting, and most of the stories are very warm. So honestly, this is like a grandmother's hug. So I never had a grandmother who would read to me at night, and these are all those stories that you can predict, but you will learn something from these stories. So these are very interesting with very funny characters. So yeah, so let's get down to business. If I have to rate this book, I'll give it a 3.5 bookmarks. It's very smooth, it's very free flowing, and if you pick it up, you can finish it in 2 or 3 goes. So yeah, I there are many warm stories and very happy stories in this book, but I'll read out harsh and bitter story which represents the truth of the society. It's very dark, and trigger warning, if you are sensitive, then you can just end the video now. But this is the harsh reality that we have to face in rural India, because in urban India these things seldom happen, so we don't talk about it much. But this is the reality, and this story touched me. It touched me very deeply, and I it had a profound effect on me, and I it got me thinking, it got me wondering. So I hope it gets you wondering too. Let me read out one short story, and you can see for yourself. Okay, the title of this story is Stove Bursts or Dowry Deaths. We have a saying in Sanskrit which means God exists where women are respected. In real life, this is not true. Very few women in our country have economic independence, the privilege of a good education, or the freedom of choosing their husbands. Most of our women are oppressed. One of the reasons for the misery of our women is the lack of education, which in turn leads to a lack of economic freedom. If a woman is not economically independent, then her life is quite difficult. Once a doctor friend of mine was discussing the problem of female infanticide. Being a gynecologist at a government hospital, she had first hand information of this terrible subject. She asked me, "Do you want to see the greatest misery a woman can face? Come, let's go, and I'll show you." She took me to the burns ward in the hospital. To negatively paraphrase the saying in Delhi's Red Fort, if there is a hell on earth, this is the place. The whole atmosphere was deeply depressing. Almost all the patients were female. The majority of them were in the age group of 18 to 28 years, from fairly poor backgrounds. They were all in agony, suffering from severe burns. All had the same story to tell. I wanted to cook. I lit the stove. Stove burst. Caught the pallu of my nylon sari. This is my mistake. My husband is very good. In laws are like my parents. In our country, many young married women die every day because of alleged stove bursts. Why is it that nobody sues the stove manufacturer? We all know the answer. There are not stove accidents, but dowry killings. Isn't it sad that in a society where Durga is worshipped and women are called Shakti, our sisters are burned like brinjals without any mercy? It makes me cry. In the middle of this hellish ward was a woman who was pregnant. She was in bed number 24 and was supposed to be a stove burst victim. My doctor friend told me that she might not survive. She asked me whether I wished to talk to her. I did not have the courage to face the poor girl, writhing in agony. It was a difficult sight to witness, but something urged me to talk. But I did not know what to say. She sensed that I wanted to talk to her. In the middle of her pain, she took the initiative. Amma, she said, I do not know how long I will live, but I want to tell you something. Only if my parents had educated me, if I had a job, if my parents had fewer children, I would not have come to this position. She couldn't speak anymore. She was screaming and flinched as the pain tormented her. Unable to witness her suffering, I came out and sat on the steps of the staircase. I was blank. After a few minutes, I noticed an old woman crying silently in the corner. She looked tired, harassed, and poor. She was all alone. I went near her and asked her what the matter was. I am the unfortunate mother of the patient you were just talking to. I'm praying to God that she should not survive. Was that mother's pain any less than her daughter's? When she begged God to let her daughter die, silent tears gave way to unabashed weeping. In the hope of calming her, I asked, how did the stove burst? There is no stove in the house, the woman said. It is all lies. We have five daughters. She is the eldest. When she was in the ninth class, we stopped her education. She was a good student, but we had no choice. I wanted someone to help me in the kitchen and look after the younger children. She had to leave school to take care of her little sisters, though she herself was a child. After a couple of years, we thought of her marriage. In our neighborhood, girls get married early. If we do not perform their marriage early enough, what will people say? We gave her a proper dowry and a grand marriage to the best of our ability. How typical it all sounded, and how predictable was what followed. The hapless mother went on. They were not happy. Her husband and mother in law would beat her for money. Then she would come back. We used to tell her to go back to her husband's house, even though we knew that they were ill treating her. We have unmarried daughters. If this daughter came back, what would their future be? Moreover, a girl's place after marriage is in her husband's house, isn't it? Who would disagree with that time honored principle? I asked her, what is your husband's job? She said, he was a carpenter. He believes that we must have a male child. Only a son can make our lives better, he says. Another light on the notions that governs the life of many in our country. Her sorrow seemed to abate little, but I could see anger in her eyes. Her story continued along predictable lines. We thought that when she had children, things would become better, but that did not happen. When she became pregnant, her mother in law came to know that it was a baby girl. Then she decided to kill my daughter. My daughter gave a dying declaration. It said that her sister in law had tied her hands in the middle of the night, that her useless husband had poured kerosene over her, and the mother in law had lit the match. My doll like daughter burnt like camphor in no time. Unconsolable grief burst forth from that helpless mother, tears flowing like a river. I did not know what to say. I just mumbled, do not worry. The law will take its course and they will be punished. But it turned out that that possibility also had been taken care of. The husband had threatened that if she told the truth, he would harm her sisters and ruin all hopes of their marriages. So she took back her dying declaration. Thus, the culprits were safe, and one more girl was sacrificed on the altar of society's greed. I could now understand the poor girl's words. If she had been educated, she could have taken up a job and left her husband. If her parents had fewer children, then they could have kept and cared for her. Her parents were more worried about what people talked about them than the fate that awaited their daughter. The case of this pregnant girl may end like any other stowburst story. Her husband would be free, he would marry again, and similar incidents will be repeated. The problem goes on because there is no immediate punishment to the offenders. Even when cases are registered, they drag on in courts for years. The greed for more material things is growing, so people go for easy dowry money. The Sanskrit quote where it says that we worship women. These words came back to me without my knowing it. Tears welled up in my eyes. Then the duty sister came and announced expressionlessly, patient in bed number 24 is dead. Salute to life.